All right, great. Hello and good morning. Welcome. Thank you for joining today's webinar, learning about MEFA Pathway's work-based learning tool. My name is Jennifer Bento-Pinion. I'm Director of K-12 Services at MEFA. And during this session, we will hear from Joe Wyman, liaison with districts in Western Mass for the Office of College and Career Technical Education with the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And Joe will speak to the adoption of MEFA Pathway's new work-based learning tools. And then we will hear from Apalula Joseph, Director of MEFA Pathway, who will give us a thorough demonstration of the work-based learning features in MEFA Pathway, going through the counselor, student, and employer portals. So just a few logistics before we start. We are recording this session, so if you have to leave early, no worries. And as a follow-up, you'll receive an email with a link to a page on mefa.org where you'll find the recording and the slides. Additionally, this session is part of our MEFA Institute, so it's eligible for one PDP professional development point, and you'll find the link to the evidence of learning form on that mefa.org page as well. So the chat is disabled. If you have any questions that pop up, just put them in the QA and those will be addressed. Okay, so let's get started. Take it away, Joe.
Great. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm excited to be a part of this webinar. Just to sort of kick things off, no, go ahead to the next one. Sort of to kick things off, we ground all our work here at DESE in our educational vision. We work very hard to develop that, and we use it to guide all our work. The principles of our vision is that all students in Massachusetts, particularly students from historically underserved groups and communities, are valued. Culturally and linguistically sustained classroom and school practices, and high expectations with targeted support. So what does that look like? It means that all students are known and valued. Learning experiences are relevant, real world, and interactive, and individualized supports enable students to excel at grade level and beyond. This webinar is focused on work-based learning, and you can see how that is particularly relevant for learning experiences being relevant, real world, and interactive. But I also think it provides opportunities for students to be known and valued, and to receive the kinds of individualized supports that will help them be successful after high school. Go to the next one. Here's a graphic we use to describe our college and career ready initiatives, sort of helping us distinguish between some of the programs we have and also see how they're sort of all tied together. So you can see on one end of the sort of left end of the graph, career outcomes with college readiness. So these are programs more focused on career outcomes, even as they prepare students to be successful in college. And that includes the state-approved CTE, including After Dark programs, commonly known as Chapter 74, as well as Career Connections program, what used to be known as non-Chapter 74. And on the right hand, where you see a larger focus on college outcomes, but with career exploration, you have early college designation and innovation career pathways. And in the middle, you have continued exploration, which students, regardless of the pathway they may be in, could participate in and should participate in at least some of these, learning more about academic and career opportunities. Underpinning all of this is MyCap and comprehensive counseling to help students make informed decisions about their secondary experience and what they want to do after high school as well, including coursework that prepares students for post-secondary education. Math core is what we're talking about there. High quality curriculum and instruction for math, English, and science. Okay, next one. And here is our Massachusetts career development model. This is sort of a guide for our work and for schools and districts to think about the sort of career experiences or career development experiences students should have as they move through secondary school. Starting in middle school, thinking about for students thinking about what are the interests and talents and skills that I have, and then beginning to shift into thinking about career potentials or career opportunities. How do those help me identify specific careers I might be interested in? How can I learn more about those careers? How can I explore them? And then ultimately, through an experience like work-based learning, as you move further into high school, how do I have deeper, more immersive experiences to understand better what it's like to work in that specific field? Yep, next one. When we talk about work-based learning in Massachusetts, here are the kinds of experiences we're talking about. We're talking about pre-apprenticeship programs, which is a program that has a documented partnership with at least one registered apprenticeship program. An internship or a clinical experience for students that is a paid or credit-bearing work experience of 100 hours or more. A work-based learning capstone, and I would distinguish that from other capstones by that experience being including an industry engaged partner. So it would be a capstone where students are working with an industry partner on a project or on some kind of work. Work-based learning simulations that engages employers and or clients or customers, either external to the school or district. So that would be opportunities in healthcare, working in simulations, for example, but also partnering with an industry organization, an industry that's part of that field. And then cooperative education is an alternating paid work and classroom experience as part of a CTE program. So work-based learning and pathways. Work-based learning is a required component of designated career pathways and Perkins-funded programs, including Career Connections, Chapter 74, and Innovation Career Pathways. Students will engage in work-based learning through state-funded connecting activities with the workforce boards, through youth works and other initiatives. And in addition to that, schools may have local initiatives that they include that students can participate in as a part of their work-based learning experience. Here, I just wanted to make the connection between work-based learning, the coursework students participate in, and MyCap experiences students may be having in the district. And the essential takeaway here is that each of these should be working together and informing the other. So as students participate in MyCap, they're thinking about the kinds of work-based learning experiences they may be interested in, and thinking about the kinds of courses they're interested in as they sort of develop their career plan or their post-secondary plan. But as those experiences, as they go through those experiences, their goals and plans may change. So as they take specific courses, they may decide that they enjoy a different field than they thought they did, or they don't enjoy as much the field they thought they would. And similarly, as they go through work-based learning, they may just make decisions about, actually, I want to have a different post-secondary plan than what I thought I was interested in when I began this experience. So these are all interconnected, and each, depending on the student's experience, and each part of this can inform the other parts. So, Jennifer was talking before about DESE's adoption of MEFA Pathway as our new work-based learning tool. If you're familiar with the Skills Library, this is replacing Skills Library. Skills Library, I think, does exist as a website, but we are not actively using that. And this is the resource we'll be using to track student participation in work-based learning. We will support the adoption of this tool for districts. Our goal is that by 27-28 school year, all high schools will have adopted MEFA Pathway as their work-based learning tool. So we're going to support that adoption through grant funding and technical assistance in partnership with MEFA. So we had a grant this spring that's wrapping up, and we intend to post another grant similarly to support sort of a pilot group of districts as they work towards adoption of MEFA Pathway and the expansion of work-based learning opportunities. You can also get support through your liaisons for that adoption. We have had multiple webinars now supporting this adoption. I imagine we will continue to have more next year. And we are developing a community of practice for schools that are trying to move, be sort of early adopters. In addition to all that, MEFA's continuous improvement approach to this partnership means they're learning with us and are regularly integrating feedback into their updates. Next one. So MEFA Pathway is the college and career planning tool that DESE has adopted for work-based learning. So what does that mean? What are sort of the expectations? By 27-28, that school year, all high schools will be using it to provide a list of activities students can choose. An opportunity for students to create a work-based learning plan that includes what the students will do and their goals for work-based learning, and opportunities for student reflection and employer feedback based on that work-based learning experience. There are more, you can do more with the tool than those, but that's sort of the minimum expectation, or the minimum level for our goals by the end of the 27-28 school year. Just some other information to make sure we're all on the same page. The grants from our office will not be able, you can't use those to fund alternative platforms. So if you get an Innovation Career Pathway program or a MyCap grant, those can't be used to pay for alternative platforms. But that doesn't mean you have to get rid of those students or get rid of other platforms. If you choose to continue using other platforms for other parts of MyCap or college and career planning, that's you certainly can do that. But the expectation for work-based learning specifically will be MEFA Pathway. Okay. And just some other resources on our website. There we have information and resources for work-based learning. You can see the website there. And then we also have the Mass Career Connected Learning website that has information about our CTE programs and the frameworks that are certainly useful for Chapter 74 Career Connections, but also for ICP programs that may be aligned with those. There's also information there about industry demand for graduates in specific fields and other information that you may find useful for your pathway programs or as a part of a MyCap experience. And I think with that, I will hand it over to Apolila.
Good morning. Thank you, Joe. So before I dive into the demo portion, I just want to do sort of high level what MEFA Pathway is. So MEFA Pathway is a free college and career planning tool available to schools and districts. Really, anyone can create a MEFA Pathway account. So if you have never experienced MEFA Pathway, feel free to create your own test student account by going to mefapathway.org. Following my demo, we'll share information for schools that want more information, or if you just want to set up a meeting to have some more in-depth time to view the site and get some of your questions answered. So with that being said, for the purposes of this morning's demo, we are going to take a look at building out your work-based learning database and where you would do that and how that works within MEFA Pathway. We will go into the student portal and sort of show you what students would experience as they're browsing work-based learning opportunities and building out their work-based learning plan. We will also show you from the employer perspective what their role is and how that works on the employer side. And then we will spend a little bit of time looking at our new reporting and, of course, additional resources to support work-based learning implementation. As we go in, I will say this has been our build year, so it's been a really exciting year for us. We've done, to Joe's point, we've done a couple of webinars, we've done some demos, we've gotten lots of great feedback from you all, so I can't stress this enough. Everything that's within MEFA Pathway really is based off of our users and our schools' direct feedback. And I will encourage that as I go through my demo this morning and as we roll into the fall. If folks have feedback, questions, please feel free to share it with us because, again, we change and improve the tool based off of your direct feedback. So we're going to start with building out the work-based learning database. And so Jennifer is in our counselor portal where we have a work-based learning page. So right on the counselor portal dashboard under the tools section, you'll see a link for work-based learning. You can also access this under the admin tab. If you click on admin and then work-based learning. So we're going to go to that page. And so as that's loading, I will add for districts that are working with their Mass Higher Workforce Board, or if there's another sort of CBO in your building that is helping to support work-based learning, we do have a work-based learning user role. So if you want to grant folks access to help you build out your database, but you want to limit sort of their view and what they're able to touch and do within the counselor portal, we do have that user role available. So here on our work-based learning page, this is where folks will build out their database. So you see the list of all the opportunities that are added into your work-based learning database. There's a little search bar at the top if you want to search and edit one particular opportunity. But at the bottom of the page, there is an add new button. So you would click that to add a new opportunity. And so when the page loads, there's a handful of required fields that you have to fill out. So what's the opportunity name, the description, the eligibility criteria, the type of opportunity. So is this a guest speaker, an internship, uh, youth employment experience? There's also a career category field. Location is another required field. So is this opportunity in person? Is it remote? Is it hybrid? And there's an accompanying remote video link. If it is a remote opportunity, maybe you're having a guest speaker come in and you want to provide that Zoom link for students. And then, of course, the company or organization name is required. And then, of course, the status field. The rest of the fields are completely optional. So the more information you provide, the more information students will have to view on their side. But if there are pieces that you say, this doesn't really apply for this opportunity, or it's not necessary for our students to see, then you do not have to fill those fields out and they will not display to students. Once you click submit to add the opportunity to the database, you'll have an opportunity to add an attachment. So if this is a guest speaker and there's an accompanying flyer that you want to add, you have the option to add an attachment. And so students will be able to view those flyers on their side in the student portal. And so in a really quick nutshell, that is how you add opportunities to the work-based learning database. I will say, again, this has been our build year. And so the number one piece that have sort of come out of this year is an upload tool for building out the database. And so that is something that we've already brought back to the development team, and it'll work into our coming roadmap. And Jennifer, if I miss anything as I'm going through, please stop me. So with that, we are going to transition over to the student side to view what students see after you build out that database. So we are in Alice's account. So our student Alice, she's an 11th grader at MEFA Academy. And so when students log into the student portal, they're greeted with their dashboard. On their dashboard, there's some suggested activities, but to find work-based learning, students will just click on Discover Careers. Right on the Discover Careers landing page, there's a little icon for work-based learning that they can click on, or you can use the sub navigation at the top. So when you pull up the work-based learning page, students will see all the opportunities that you have marked as active in your database. So if you have opportunities that change from year to year, maybe you have an employer partner and it's available in the fall, but not in the spring, you might mark that opportunity as active in the fall and then change it to inactive for the spring. Changing it to inactive will hide it from a student's view. And so that's why we have 15 opportunities available for Alice to browse through. So as students are browsing, this is where they're going to come to see, hey, I met with my counselor. They said there's some great work-based learning opportunities. I'm in 11th grade. It's time for me to, get this show on the road. So students can come here and they can browse by opportunity type. So we have some filters on the left-hand side. So maybe you're only looking for an internship. So you can select internship as a filter. You can filter based on career category. You can filter based on location, or if an opportunity is paid or not. So some of our students, they're like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea, but I really only want something if it's paid. They're able to filter based off of that. On the broader side, students can click on any opportunities to view more information. So on that browse screen, they just get some quick high-level information, but when they click on the opportunity, they are greeted with the information card up front, which is just high-level, the type, career category, start and end dates, if there's a specific deadline to apply. And then as they scroll down, they can read the full description for the opportunity, any eligibility criteria, and then how to access the opportunity. So if there's an application link, company's website, if that was provided, again, those optional fields that you see as you're building out your database, if you fill them in, they will appear to the student. If you do not, then those fields will not appear. And then, of course, if there's any attachments. So students can click on the attachments that are included at the bottom as well. So let's say students are browsing, they're like, you know what? This opportunity seems really interesting to me. They can go ahead and click save. And so Alice has already saved this specific opportunity to her My Opportunities list. But students are able to do that. As they're browsing, they can save multiple opportunities. Maybe you're just giving them time to look through and they're like, wow, these 3 things seem really appealing to me. And they want to save all 3 of them to their My Opportunities list. Once they do that, if you click on My Opportunities, this is where students can manage those opportunities. So maybe they saved 3 of them. From that, they only actually applied to 2 of them, and then maybe only 1 of them actually hired them. So using that status field, students can update the status of where they're at with that specific opportunity. Clicking the favorite icon, the little heart, will pin the opportunity to the top of their list. And then, of course, selecting will attend or hired will prompt the My Plan column to populate with an open button. Once students launch their My Plan, this is their work-based learning plan. So this is where students are doing their self-evaluations, and then, of course, inviting their worksite supervisor and viewing those employer evaluations as well. So at the top, students have the option to add a school-based supervisor. So if there's a certain career teacher who's in charge of work-based learning in your school, they can add them to the school supervisor spot by clicking Edit. Students can also add their worksite supervisor to the employer evaluation section. So clicking Edit, they can add in their worksite supervisor's name and email address, and then there's an invite button that will appear where students can click invite and invite their worksite supervisor to our employer portal, which we'll look at in just a moment. So back at the top, for the student evaluation, we have 3 different types of evaluations. The initial self-evaluation really is about goal setting, getting the students to think about their work-based learning opportunity. What skills do they want to work on as they're going through this opportunity, any goals that they might have. So that's really the point of the initial evaluation. And so students can edit this form and save it until they're completed. So sometimes students don't finish everything in one sitting. Once they click submit, that will lock the form from any further editing. The midpoint and the final evaluation are really carbon copies of each other. And so this is where students are tracking their skill growth. So they're able to go through, read each of the personal and social mindsets and characteristics. There's some examples of how they might do that. And then they can rate themselves. You know, I'm just starting out. Maybe I see myself as a 2 with collaboration. That's something that I can work on. And then there's also space for them to reflect. Um, so as you know, a huge part of MyCap is reflection. So as students are going through these experiences, we want them to stop and reflect on how they are exhibiting some of these characteristics and skills in their work-based learning opportunities. There is that little info icon if students need help with their reflections, framing them. So that's just another help aid. And again, the midpoint and the final evaluations work the same way as the initial, where students can click edit. They can save the opportunity, come back as many times as they need to in order to finish it. I will also add the industry skill sections at the bottom. So there's space for 2 industry skills on those midpoint and final evaluations. We do have it in our roadmap for that to be a pick list of skills for students to select from. Currently, it's written as a write-in, but that will change to a pick list that students are selecting from. So as students are going through doing their initial, midpoint, final evaluations, they'll see their status update. So if it's in progress as they're continuing to edit, the status will change to completed once they submit it, and they can always come back and view those forms. With the employer evaluation, they have sent their invite to their worksite supervisor. The worksite supervisor will receive an email saying, hey, you've been invited to MEFA Pathway's employer portal. Within that email, there will be a link and directions saying, hey, click this link and create your account for the employer portal. Creating the account is pretty straightforward. We're looking for really minimal information. So email address, first name, last name, job title. So it's pretty straightforward to create the account, quick and simple. If anyone needs assistance as they're creating their employer portal account, we do have our contact information right on the homepage. So employers will log in to the employer portal. Upon logging in, they will see all the students that have added them as their worksite supervisor. So some employers might be working with multiple schools or multiple districts. So they will see the student's name, the school that the student is from, and then the initial, midpoint, and final evaluations. By clicking on the evaluation status, that will launch the evaluation form. The initial evaluation really is like a job description, something that the employer can work with the student on as they're filling it out. So what are your general tasks and responsibilities, any skills or software that you have to learn, and then any projects that you might be working on. The forms work the same way as the student forms, where the employer can edit and come back to it as many times as they need to, and then clicking submit will lock the form from further editing. The midpoint and the final evaluations work, very similarly to how the student evaluations work, where again, it's presenting those personal and social mindsets and characteristics, and the employer is rating the student's achievement level for each, and then providing some comments back to the student. So as employers go through and complete all of these evaluations, students are able to see the completed evaluation within the student portal. And I will add, from the educator standpoint within our counselor portal, you can see both the student and the employer evaluations within the student's record on the counselor portal. So from a school perspective, you have total oversight of what students are saying, what employers are saying, so that way you can keep track of that. I will add within the employer portal, if you click on the chevron next to the employer's name. Oh, if you want to jump back to the employer portal, thank you. If you click on the chevron, there is a link to our resource library. This is something that we are continuously adding to. So we've sort of gone through our build year. Right now, there's just a handful of instructional guides included within the resource library, but we will continue to add videos and just helpful guides for folks as they are using this tool. So we are going to jump back over to the counselor portal, and we're going to take a look at reporting. So you can access our reporting two different ways, again, similar to how you access work-based learning under the tools section right on the dashboard. Or if you click on the admin tab and then click on reports, you can access the reports page. So on the left-hand side of the reports page are our standard reports. These are reports based on, various activities that exist within the student portal. On the right-hand side are our custom reports. So as a school or an individual user, if you create your own reports, you can see them here, as well as our work-based learning reports. So the reports are brand new. They just came out, I don't know, 3 weeks ago maybe. And there's some additional reports and filter options that will be added as we move throughout the month of June. So let's just click on our saved opportunities. So this report is, the broadest sense, has a student saved any work-based learning opportunity to their list. So to edit this, you have to select a report window. So the start date and the end date. So let's say you want to see students that have saved opportunities beginning September 1st to, let's use yesterday's date as our window. And so if you click view report, you will be brought up with a list of schools and the student count to see how many students at each school has saved an opportunity to their list. So as an individual school using this tool, you'll be able to drill in and see specifically for your school, your student level data. Let's say, you want to look at students that have saved opportunities and you want to parse it out by year of graduation. You'll be able to do that. But with our reporting, we wanted to provide very broad students that have saved opportunities all the way to very narrow students that have both all of their self-evaluations, and employer evaluations completed. In addition to tracking the skill growth, there's reports on, you want to see what the skill growth was at their midpoint versus their final evaluation. So all of that sort of detailed reporting is available. And then in the coming weeks, you'll be able to change and add different filters on some of those reports. In terms of sort of additional things coming, as I've mentioned, this really has been our build year. So we have really spent the bulk of the year building out the tool, but also taking in lots of feedback. And so we're working that feedback into our roadmap, not only for the fall, so there will be some tweaks and changes to the work-based learning tool coming this fall, but as we sort of continue on, this is an iterative process. Let's just jump over to MEFA.org. So on MEFA.org, on our resource center page, we have a couple of work-based learning videos. So this is great. Obviously, you can share this webinar with folks, but if you are meeting with, different populations and you just want to show a short video of what the tool does, how it works, we have these short 2 or 3 minute videos available on MEFA.org, and we'll be adding these to our resource library in MEFA Pathway. So the first one is about students. So students exploring work-based learning and what that experience looks like in a short 2-minute video. So it's great if you have a group of students that are going to be using MEFA Pathway for this purpose, and you want to share a video with them like, hey, this is just sort of a quick tutorial. It's a short 2-minute video that you can share with students. We have a video on the employer portal, and then we have a video on building out your work-based learning database. So all these pieces are available, and we will continue to provide additional resources as we make changes with the site. Okay, Jennifer, did I miss anything?
No, you didn't.
Okay,
That was
flew
great.
through that.
That was good. We do have a handful of questions. Should we take some questions?
Yes, and do you want to pull up the slide deck just in case folks want to request a demo or anything?
Mhm.
They'll have access to that while we go through questions.
All right, let's see. Let me okay, close your eyes, everyone. Flying through. Let's see, we got this. And all right, can you see the requested demo?
Yes.
Okay, super. All right, so let's take a few questions here. This would probably be for Apollia. How many user roles can you assign?
So within MEFA Pathway, we have a couple different user roles. So we created a work-based learning specific user role just to limit what folks with that user role can see. So that user role is really about building out that work-based learning database and preventing that anyone with that user role from having access to any other areas of the site. That being said, we have, a community admin user role where you can sort of see everything in the site. We have an educator user role, where you can see, your students and their information and on their student record within the site. So we have a variety of user roles. That being said, whoever you need to have access to your site. So as a school, it's totally up to the school who gets what user role. And so that's something that you can discuss with your account manager during onboarding, or if you're a current MEFA Pathway school, you can discuss that with your account manager, and we can edit user roles. So let's say, you want to give someone the work-based learning user role to start, but they are more integrated and ingrained with your school as the year goes on, and you want to change their user role over time, that is an option as well. So you're never sort of married or stuck with one user role. If the school wants to change user roles as time goes on, we can accommodate that as well.
That's great. Thanks, Apollia. And this kind of goes along the same lines, the user roles. Can mass hire staff see saved activities for each student? So based on their user role, yeah.
So with the current work-based learning user role, mass hire staff cannot see saved activities that students have. That being said, it is totally up to the school in terms of what sort of access like a mass hire member might have to a school's MEFA Pathway account. So if you work very closely with the school and the school says, oh, yes, you should be able to see student level data, and they want to grant you that type of user role, we can absolutely accommodate that, but the school has to be the one to initiate that.
Okay, great. And we got this question kind of twice. So this is a good one. Maybe more feedback. If I coordinate all internships, is there a way to add my contact information to all students rather than have each put it in?
I'm assuming that is that for the school supervisor
It sounds
spot?
like it. Patricia, I don't know if you want to, so it sounds like they'd be the worksite supervisor, but it's not clear. Let's see, maybe Patricia pops back in. Yes, she says yes.
So, well, potentially. So what's coming, what's included in our roadmap and coming. So some of the feedback that we've gotten throughout the year is, educators being able to sort of manage and edit student statuses for their work-based learning opportunities. Let's say there was a big career fair, 100 of the seniors attended, but only 25 of them updated their my opportunity status to attended. So we are building out a report so that way you can go in and mass update some of those fields. So there is potential to have a report to in mass update that information. So it's not available currently, but it is in the works. We didn't think about that particular field as an option, but that's something that I'll take back to the development team.
Great, thank you. And this next one might be one to take back as well. So we have 2 ICPs. Some of these opportunities will only be available to ICP students. How can we designate this?
Oh,
Yeah.
that is a great one. I mean, currently with the work-based learning opportunities, there's no sort of blocker in terms of what students, populations of students being able to view different types of opportunities. We can potentially add a filter if you want students to be able to see to filter out ICP opportunities. But in terms of blocking or barring students from seeing things, that's something that we'll have to take back to the development team and discuss a little bit further.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's see. So I coordinate our school's internship program. Is there an option for me to create this for the students in my program, or does it need to be generated from the student side? So maybe a little explanation on the opportunities, adding the opportunities on the.
Yeah, so I will say one thing that we have received as feedback is, the educator being able to add an opportunity to a student's My Opportunities list. But I will say at the onset of building out this work-based learning feature, the idea was that students were more so in the driver's seat with this. We want students to be a very active participant in their work-based learning opportunities. That was sort of the thought process behind it. But we have received feedback, and we're working to figure out where within the roadmap will be so an educator can add an opportunity to a student's My Opportunities list. Ultimately, it's up to the student to go on and do their self-evaluations and invite their worksite supervisor. But we are trying to accommodate for some educator oversight and potential intervention within that area.
All right, great. Next, will the evaluations be available in other languages?
So the MEFA Pathway has full site translation, and I'm sorry, I should have called it out when we were going through. So on the student dashboard, you can select the site translation, and it should translate everything on the page with a few static images. So if there are other languages that we need to accommodate for, please let us know. We're always updating and adding languages based off of the direct needs of schools.
Okay, great. Next question we have, I have students enroll in a Chapter 74 pathway. Many enroll into 6 career connection pathways, but I also have students school-wide who are not in pathways do internships. Can I use this database for those students as well?
Yes.
100%.
I mean, it's great. All students should, I wish I did a work-based learning opportunity when I was in high school. I didn't engage in that, unfortunately. But yes, all students can, whether you want to list, co-op opportunities within the database, if there are other sort of, as Joe mentioned, sort of localized opportunities, that your school is cultivating partnerships with various employers outside of those structured programs, and you want to add those opportunities in for other students to browse and participate. And, as you're meeting with them, hey, we met with a great person at the local animal shelter and they want to do an internship with our students or just a volunteer day. Go in MEFA Pathway and sign up for the volunteer day. You certainly can be flexible with how you want to add in those opportunities.
Perfect. Thank you, Aplila. Couple more questions. Here's one. We currently use MEFA Pathway for some activities. If we plan to implement it fully in our work-based learning next year, do we need to sign an agreement?
Yes. Jennifer, do you want to take that one? It's
Sure, I'll
your
give you a
wheelhouse.
rest. Yes, yes. So all schools, in order to have access to the counselor portal, would need to sign an agreement. So what we typically do is we ask schools that they request a demo from us. We meet with you, and then following that meeting, we send you our agreement. And in doing so, you then have access to the counselor portal. Any of those educators that you would like to have access to the counselor portal, we work with you to onboard your school. So that's, setting up your, we do have access to our integration with Clever and Google Single Sign-On. So you make that, you establish that. And then, yeah, we just work with you to get you up and running. So certainly use the QR code to request a demo, and yeah, we'll talk to you then.
And I'll just add, we have a district agreement as well. So for any districts with multiple schools where, you'll be using MEFA Pathway for work-based learning, or, if you want to use this for other things, totally up to you. But we do have a district agreement where the district can sign and grant permission for, all of the schools. So it's through one agreement versus each school receiving an individual agreement. So I just want to put that out there. I'm from Springfield Public Schools before joining MEFA, so I know what it is if there's multiple schools in a district, and it's just a more streamlined process if the district just signs the agreement versus individual schools. So I just want to share that as an option.
Yep. That's good. All right, so next we will be tracking if students are part of certain programs such as ICP, CTE, et cetera, as well as paid or unpaid roles. So will we be tracking? They're asking it.
As I don't kind of want to punt this one to Joe. Is this about like reporting requirements?
I mean,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, Abilila, but they do have the option for students to choose that they are in one of those programs. So that's an option. In terms of our tracking of how many students are enrolled in particular pathways, I don't think we'll use this tool for that. That will come from our SIMS data collection, as has been coming in recent years. I don't know even how many years. But when we look at reports about how many students are engaged in work-based learning, if you have students sort of designate which pathway they're in, or if they're in a pathway, then we'll be able to see how that work-based learning experiences break down by pathway type. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I'll also add, within MEFA Pathway, we do have a space if you wanted to upload your SIMS data file. And so if students are within, Innovation Career Pathways or another one of those programs, and you wanted to add that as a layer, just as a school, as your own reporting, within those work-based learning reports, there are filters if you want to look at those specific student populations. So as long as you upload that data into the system, you can look at that within the available work-based learning reports.
And speaking of the reports, maybe we can address this question here. Will we be able to see more detail in the reports, such as student names?
Yes. So as a school, if your school's participating in MEFA Pathway and you want to look at your work-based learning reports, you can see the student level detail. If you want to see, Johnny was involved in, one internship and, 3 guest speakers, you can see that sort of student level detail. Yes.
Okay. And then this is a good question. So this gentleman is from a non-for-profit and asking, is the tool only open for schools, or would our organization be able to use the tool as well? So I would say reach out to us. And so Paul, reach out, use that QR code and connect with us, and we can see what we can do. All right, let's see. Oh, this is a good question about districts. So for larger districts, is there a way to enter district-wide opportunities versus a specific school-only opportunity?
So that is feedback that we have received as we've gone through this build year for some of the larger districts that we've met with. So it is something that we've taken back to our development team, and it's something that we are looking into. So one way we're looking to address this potentially is an upload feature. And so is there a way to link all the schools within the district and just do one upload? So that's something that our development team is looking into.
Okay, great. And then who has access to the employer evaluations of each student?
So again, going back to user access. So as the educator, depending on how you assign some of those user roles, you can see everything. So you can see the students' evaluations, you can see the evaluations the employer is submitting. And so the employer is only invited to the employer portal from the student. So the student is saying, oh, yes, Mr. Smith is my worksite supervisor at Ben and Jerry's. I'm going to send him an invite to the employer portal. Mr. Smith will create his account. He can add in all of his evaluations. The student can see those evaluations within their student portal. And then as the educator, you can see those evaluations on the student's record. And so that access to view those is dependent on your user role for the counselor portal. And so that's something that we can assist with during onboarding, just to make sure the right educators have the right level of access to see what they need to see.
And that ties right into the next question, which is how do you assign the work-based learning role? So when you're setting up, when you're onboarding, or even if you're a current MEFA Pathway school, if you have any folks that you want to have that work-based learning role, just send to us their first name, last name, and email address, and the school that you're affiliated with, and we can create those accounts for you. And just be clear, like, that you want them to have just strictly that work-based learning user role. Let's see, will the employer dashboard and evaluations be available in other language, the employer dashboard?
That is something that we will take back. We have them available for students. I don't see why we couldn't expand the access to the employer portal, but I'll take that back to the development team.
Great feedback today. Good stuff. All right, so let's see, are agreements signed by school or by counselor? That is completely up to the school. We have some schools that have their superintendent sign the agreement, other schools that have the primary contact or the school counselor. So it definitely depends on the school. So it varies. This is a question for Joe. Joe, under what work-based learning category would you classify in school activities like working in running the school store, school restaurant, run by the CTE program, working on customers' cars in the CTE auto shop, etc.? Could they still be counted as simulated work experiences, though they are in school? Might want to read that one. There's a long one.
Yeah. Hold on. So yeah, I would say that each of those certainly could be an example of work-based learning. I think the store is it sort of depends how it's set up, but if it's working with people external to the school, for sure it can be. Which one it gets counted as? I don't. Do we collect that in the MEFA Pathway tool? Can you remind me, Jennifer or Apalila?
Um, well,
Uh,
I guess it depends on how we are classifying those. So technically, like, yes, you can list them as opportunities within MEFA Pathway, whether or not you want to call it, co-op or youth employment, or I think that's more so the defining factor.
right. I'm not sure. So I would say each of those can be in the tool. How you categorize them depends a little bit on exactly how they're set up. Um, but what's most important is that we recognize that they are work-based learning opportunities, and that data be captured in this tool in some way. And so that when we look to see how many students are engaged in these activities, we will have that data as a part of it.
Great. Thank you. And we have one more question. Will educators be able to see or verify the contact information that the students send their evaluations to?
Yes. So within the student's record on the work-based learning page, educators can go there and view all the information regarding a student's work-based learning opportunity. So let's say I have an internship at Ben and Jerry's. I invited Joe as my worksite supervisor. As the educator, you can go in, look at that opportunity, and verify the employer's name and email address that was entered. And so if you need to edit that, you'll have edit capabilities. If you're like, oh goodness, they misspelled the email, this is not right, let me correct it, you can do that.
Okay, and just I said one that was the last one. We have a follow-up to the previous question. So Joe just said working with people external to the school. So if students only serve internal staff, such as the cafe, school cafe, the question is, would it count as work-based learning?
I mean, I think that's a good question. Usually I've seen that set up that that it's available for people outside the school to participate, like the cafe in the Chapter 74 program. Typically it's open to the public. On a given day, it doesn't necessarily mean anyone from the public is present, but that those are available. Similarly for like auto body, again, it may be that there are internal staff that are having their cars worked on, but that at least in theory, it could be people outside. I think the school is a little tougher, but it kind of depends how it's set up. If it's a store in your lobby and people that come in the store can participate, then I would say that is a simulation where you're engaging or potentially engaging with externals. But if it's really set up exclusively for internal, I think I would suggest at least trying to think about ways where that opportunity you could create opportunities for students to work with or sort of serve others outside the school community.
Okay, thank you. One more. They keep coming in. That's good. For students who are currently using other work-based learning systems, will the data from those schools, districts be collected until adopted? Joe, that might be for you.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, for
Or
schools
should
who
read
are,
it, I think.
yep, no, for schools who are currently using other work-based learning systems, is work-based learning data from those school or districts being collected until adopted?
So for specific grants or programs, we do collect that data in a variety of ways. For example, in connecting activities, there are ways in which we'll collect data or from workforce boards on work-based learning, as well as some other activities that they participate in. ICP collects data in a variety of ways. But we are in a bit of a transition right now as we move from, say, Skills Library to this, where ultimately the goal would be that all of that data ends up in this resource. But right now we're sort of transitioning, so I could imagine there might be some of that that's not captured, but that's okay because we know we're transitioning.
Okay, great, thank you. And I think that's been a common question as we've kind of gone through this process, so thank you for clarifying that. Here's another. We have a district-wide ICP program that involves 6 sending schools in the district. Could our ICP program be set up as its own school to manage student work-based learning opportunities for our students?
I would say that is one that we should meet and talk about further just to get a clearer picture of what's going on and then what the best setup for that would be.
Kelsey, reach out. We've connected already, so reach out, Kelsey, and we can chat. All right. Any other questions? So you have our contact information. So if any questions pop up after we conclude this webinar, do not hesitate to reach out. And we'd be happy to meet, to chat, to give you a demo. So don't hesitate to reach out. Anything else, Appley or Joe, that you want to?
No, I guess stay tuned. We'll be coming at you more this fall with probably more webinars and additional resources. Again, this has been our build year. Any feedback that you have, we want to tweak and change the tool in a way that is most beneficial for the schools and students as users. So please feel free to send us any comments or feedbacks, via email.
I'll just say as next steps for schools and districts would be, my suggestion would be scheduling a demo with the MEFA Pathway team, as they mentioned earlier, and beginning the process of thinking about how in your school or district, how you would adopt this pathway, MEFA Pathway as your work-based learning tool. Who has to sign the agreement, or what does that look like?
Okay, great. Yes, you can send any feedback to, the question is, do we have your email to send feedback? So send any feedback to k12support@mefa.org. It's right down there on the bottom of the screen. All right, great. Well, thank you all for joining this morning. We had a great group, good way to start the day. And we'll follow up with that email that will have the slides and a link to the recording and the page on MEFA Institute. Take advantage of getting your one PDP. All right. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Appley.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Okay.